My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask your pardon for my sins and the grace to make these moments of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. We've seen quite a bit of St. John the Baptist in the liturgy over the last while, as we've gone through Advent and prepared for the coming of the Messiah, which we celebrated just a week ago. The Church has been using that voice crying out in the wilderness, "Make a straight way for the Lord," to help us to prepare our own lives for Jesus' arrival. And now, after Christmas, as we start the new calendar year, the Church again brings us to the life of Jesus' precursor. Life as a precursor could seem pretty lame from a human point of view. I think that deep down, even if it's hidden very, very deep down, everyone has a certain inclination to want to be at the center. Even if a person chooses not to be at the center, there can be a kind of reluctance to be just a preface to someone else. Declaring that the meaning of my life is simply to be a preface to someone else could certainly make my life seem kind of lame. It could make my life seem kind of lame, but it doesn't actually. Not as far as things related to God are concerned, anyway. Just imagine the life of St. John the Baptist, leaving behind all the super intense asceticism. What do we see? Around 2,000 years ago, we find ourselves near the banks of the Jordan River. Perhaps we almost wake up there and discover ourselves in the middle of a throng of people. People of all types, but especially the poor and the average, the normal guy. The rich, none, or few at best. There are a few Pharisees looking on too, looking on with a certain disdain. But in the middle of that throng, we find ourselves moving along slowly. There are very average and ordinary people all around us. A few who are qualified, many are just labourers. Plenty of mums, perhaps carrying a baby or encouraging a toddler along in the midst of that pathway of mud and dust. And then there are the tax collectors and prostitutes. You find yourself next to them too. And even if in another context you wouldn't want to be seen there, the look on their faces makes you love them and love being there. That look could be defined as sorrow or contrition. But as you look at the prostitute alongside you, the one who barely lifts her eyes to look at you for all the shame, that look seems at once sorrow and at the same time a longing to recover her self-worth, a longing to be loved, and to know herself worthy of being loved. And as that crowd in which we find ourselves ambles along, you don't know fully where you're going, but more and more you begin to feel what those tax collectors and prostitutes feel. And as you cast an eye among the crowd, you realize that everyone around you seems to be feeling the same thing. Nevertheless, as that crowd draws near to its end, you see everyone walking towards St. John the Baptist. You too. He's baptizing, of course, and that baptism seems to mean forgiveness. As we get closer to him, we see people walking out of the water looking relieved after baptism. But we also hear him telling everyone, this is nothing compared to what you will see, nothing compared to what you will feel. Perhaps we even hear those words he uses in today's gospel. I am not the Christ. I am, as Isaiah prophesied, a voice that cries in the wilderness, make a straight way for the Lord. I baptize you with water, but there stands among you, unknown to you, the one who is coming after me, and I am not fit to undo his sandal strap. We see that throng of people coming to him, receiving the baptism of preparation, and we discover St. John the Baptist preparing an entire people to be ready to receive the unlimited glory of God in humanity appearing, and his unlimited forgiveness upon humanity poured out. And looking at that, we realize that if St. John the Baptist's life was a preface, it was a most enviable gift to be that preface. It was his glory to be a preface to so many souls' encounter with God himself, to prepare them to be able to receive him and his forgiveness. That preface is the conduit which prepares souls for God and leads them to him. And so, Jesus, I wish more of your 21st century disciples knew the glory that is given them and being a preface to your encounter with the souls that you have put at our side. I think sometimes we find it easy to forget who you are, to forget that we hold in our hearts the greatest treasure any human person in history has ever possessed. And we think we'll make ourselves really worthwhile if we can get a new iPhone or enough likes on Insta, or if we achieve whatever that contemporary of ours managed to do. But those things are never going to make us worthwhile. A preface, in our context, isn't just a few paragraphs that people skim over to get to the juicy part of the story. To be a preface is to have the role of preparing a soul. It's that person's nascent encounter with God in us, in order to make them ready and able to receive an encounter directly with God himself. Sometimes people need more preparation than they think. A few years ago, I watched this movie called Brooklyn. It's about an Irish girl who moves to the US and falls in love with a bloke. The only problem is that he's Italian. I won't tell the whole story here, but thankfully her friends knew that she'd need a lot of preparation to meet the Italian family to get them to approve of an Irish girl. So they taught her everything she needed to know, including how to eat spaghetti with a fork. Now, this is no mean feat. I spent years in Italy and I never mastered it. The Italians used to fascinate me with their capacity to so delicately manage that moving, slippery, incomprehensibly agile plate of theoretically inert pasta. But anyway, our Irish friend needed to learn, and so she did. I won't give the story away, but thankfully, we know she had good friends who could prepare her for the meeting. Of course, Jesus, I know that it's different. We're not preparing people to win over the love of their life, but to be willing to meet the love of their life. If people knew that on meeting you they'd meet everything they long for, I think they'd be begging us to prepare them. The thing is, they don't realize. So I suppose so much of our work is found in simply explaining to them who you are, helping them to understand that meeting you doesn't mean meeting a God who's going to give them a whole pile of rules to live by, and helping them instead to understand that to meet you is like the people in that crowd going to be baptized by John. Meeting you isn't just a figure or promise of forgiveness, of self-value, of eternity. It's the reality of those things. That all sounds like a lot. It sounds like too much, to be honest. And so I guess that's why you need us to preface your encounter with souls. Why you need us to prepare them. Is it really possible, a soul might think, for me to have so great an encounter? And we help them to be open and to make that encounter happen. Jesus, help us to realize the work that we do in preparing souls to encounter you. And then teach us to do it better too. Teach us to prepare them with patience, with the same patience that you have as you wait, sometimes waiting even for an entire lifetime, waiting for people to be ready to meet you. Our Mother Mary, help us also to understand the work that we do in preparing souls to meet your Son. Help us to know him better, to know the reality of everything that encounter means in our own lives, in order to be able to prepare souls not simply with words, but with our very selves. I thank you, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations which you have communicated to me in this time of prayer. I ask your assistance in putting them into effect. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.